Hello, and welcome back to this course on programming in Rust. In this video, we're going to take a look at smart pointers. So remember, a pointer is just a value that holds an address. It tells you where some data lives rather than being the actual data itself. A smart pointer is that same idea with a bit of extra brains bolted on. As well as pointing, it does something useful for you. Maybe it puts the data on the heap. Maybe it keeps track of how many owners it has. Maybe it checks your borrowing rules as the program runs. In this video, we're going to take a look at three that we're going to use the most often, and these are box, RC, and RefCell. And we'll also take a look at two traits, Deref and Drop. So let's start with the simplest one, box. Now, a box does one small job. It takes a value, drops it on the heap, and keeps a little pointer to it back on the stack. A quick reminder, if you're a little unsure what stack and heap are, the stack is the fast, tidy space your program uses for things whose size is already known. The heap is the roomier space for everything else, so stuff that's bigger or stuff that grows over time, or that you won't know the size of until the program's actually running. So a box is just telling Rust, park this value on the heap and hand me back a pointer to it. Now, when do you actually need to use box? There's a big reason for this, and we ran into this when we built our interpreter project, is that you'll need it when a type that holds more of itself. So in our interpreter tree project, we created an expression that could contain other expressions. That situation can be a bit of a headache for the compiler, because it needs to know exactly how big every type is, right down to the byte. And a type that nests itself never gives it a straight answer. It could just go on forever. So box is what gets us out of situations like this. So I've created a new project called Smart Pointers, and I've got my main.rs file. And to demonstrate box, let's write the following. All right, let me go ahead and run this. I'll open up a new terminal, and we're going to type cargo run. All right, so here we are. So it's printed out the statement, and let's get out of the terminal and we'll just explain what's happening. So think about what would happen here without the box. The add expression property holds two expressions, but an expression might itself be an add holding two more expressions, and each of those might be an add too, and so on and so forth. The compiler will try to add up the total size and it will simply never finish. The box breaks that loop because a box is just a pointer, and a pointer is always the same small fixed size no matter how big or deeply nested the thing is on the other end. So the moment we wrap up the two children in box, every expression has a known size again, which is just a couple of pointers. And the output is essentially just the tree printing exactly as we built it, an add holding 1 and 2. That's simply what it is. All right, now let's take a look at Deref and Drop. So we'll take a look at Deref first. Now Deref lets you treat a smart pointer as if it were a plain reference to the value inside it. You've probably been using it without already noticing. So back with this box, when you call a method on it, what Rust does is it quietly follows the pointer and runs the method on the real value for it without any special syntax needed. That little step, Rust hopping from the pointer to the value, is essentially what Deref is doing. Then with Drop lets a type run a little of your own code automatically the moment the value goes out of scope, usually to tidy something up. So let's actually see this in action. I am going to write the following. Okay, let me open up the terminal. And I'll just clean this up. And then type cargo run. All right, so we've got using the resource printed out first and then cleaning up. So looking at the order of that output, we print using the resource first, and then the very instant main ends and our resource value falls out of scope, Rust runs the drop code for us, and it comes out cleaning up. And notice in our main function, we're not actually calling drop ourselves. We didn't even have to. This is because it's quietly happening all over Rust already. It's how a box frees its heap memory, how a file closes itself when you're done with it, how a lock gets released, etc. You create the thing, you use it, and when it goes out of scope, Rust cleans it up for you automatically and reliably. And this is how Rust manages memory and resources without a garbage collector, which in a lot of other programming languages is a background process that runs every so often to hunt down and free memory that nothing is using anymore. So Rust doesn't need one because drop already handles it at the precise moment a value scope ends. Now let's take a look at RC for shared ownership. So let's think about ownership for a second. The rule was that each value has exactly one owner, and when that owner goes away, the value is freed. Now this is great, but every now and then it's just too strict for what we actually need. Sometimes we need one piece of data to have several owners at once. Think of a few different parts of a structure all pointing at one shared node. RC is what makes that safe. Now RC is just a short for reference counted, and it lets a value have many owners, as long as they're all on the same thread. And the way it works is right there in the name. RC keeps a little counter of how many owners exist right now. Each new owner adds 1 to the count. Every owner that goes away takes off 1. And only when the count finally reaches 0, when the very last owner has gone, does the RC free the data. Let's take a look at this in action. Right, let's open up our terminal again. Just clear this up. And let's run. Okay, so here's the key thing, and this does catch people out. But basically, when you see RC clone, let me actually just get out of this. When you see this RC clone, your instinct from earlier might tell you that a clone means a full deep copy. But RC clone is a little bit different. It doesn't copy the string at all. All it does is nudge that owner count up by 1 and hand you back another RC, another owner, pointing at the very same string in memory. That's why it's so cheap, and that's why our count prints as 2. So open up the terminal again. We should see, there it is, our count is 2. And these two owners are A and B with one shared string between them. There we go, there's our string being shared between them. Then, as A and B each go out of scope at the very end of main, the count ticks back down to 2, 1, 0. And the moment that it hits 0, this string is freed. Now there is one last thing worth mentioning here. RC only works on a single thread. There is a thread safe cousin called RAC or ARC, which is short for atomic reference counted. And it does exactly the same job, but safely across threads. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into concurrency in the next video. So RC gets us shared ownership, but there is a catch. Whatever's inside an RC is read only. We can look at the data, but we can't change the data. And that's on purpose, because if a bunch of owners could all be changing the same data at once, you'd have exactly the kind of chaos that Rust's borrowing rules are designed to stop. So RC plays it safe and only ever hands out a shared read-only reference. The trouble is, in some situations, we do actually need to change shared data. And this is where RefCell comes into it. RefCell holds the actual data and makes it changeable, while the RC around it lets that data be shared. Now here's the clever part. RefCell will actually take the borrow check that normally happens at compile time and moves it to runtime. So instead of the compiler providing your borrows that are safe before anything runs, RefCell sits there and checks them itself live as the program is running. And that's the trick that lets you change something from what looks like a read-only shared handle. This pattern is common enough, and it's earned its own name called interior mutability. So in our main.rs file, I am going to write the following just to show how this works. All right, let me go ahead, open the terminal, clear that up, and let's run this with cargo run. Cool, so we see our vector 1, 2, 3, and then also the value 4 being printed out. So let's walk through what actually happened. This borrow mute, let me get rid of the extra semicolon there. The borrow mute will ask for a RefCell for a mutable borrow of the vector inside, and we're going to push 4 straight into it, right through a handle that was meant to be read-only. Then borrow, without the mute, asks for a plain shared borrow just so we can print it. These two methods, borrow and borrow mute, are how you reach for whatever's inside RefCell, and every single time you call them, RefCell is checking the borrowing rules for you right there and then. And that's the trade-off that you have to be clear-eyed about, because the check now is happening at runtime, not compile time, a mistake that won't get caught by the compiler. If you break the rules, say if you grab 2 mutable borrows at the same time, you won't get that friendly red compiler error. You'll get a panic live while your program is running. So it's a real superpower, but it is a sharp one. Use RC and RefCell together on purpose only when your data genuinely needs to be both shared and changeable. Okay, let's wrap up the video. So we talked about boxes and how that puts data on the heap. Essentially, a box will hold one value behind a pointer of a known size, which is what lets a type contain itself, just like we saw when we were building our interpreters tree project. Deref and Drop make smart pointers feel native. So Deref will let you use a smart pointer as if it were a value inside, while Drop runs cleanup code automatically when a value goes out of scope. RC gives shared ownership. It lets several owners share one value on a single thread and frees it only when the last owner goes away. There is a thread-safe cousin for it for sharing across multiple threads, which is known as arc. And then RefCell adds interior mutability. It lets you mutate through a shared reference by moving the borrow check to the runtime, so breaking the rules will actually cause your code to panic instead of failing to compile. In our next video, we're going to take a look at concurrency, which is running our code on several threads at once and doing it without the data races that plague so many other languages. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more videos on Rust, don't forget to subscribe. Any questions, pop them in the comment section below. And as always, this code will be shared on my GitHub account, and there's a whole bunch of resources in the video description that you should check out to help supplement your learning. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next one.